The courtroom air was still, the kind of stillness that only exists when everyone assumes they already know how the story ends. People whispered. Heads turned. Security barely blinked. Another defendant. Another day. And then, the doors opened. He walked in alone. No lawyer at his side. No adult guiding him. Just a teenager, slim, quiet, maybe 15, dressed in a neatly ironed polo shirt and clean jeans. His posture wasn't arrogant. It was composed. And that was the first thing that made the room uncomfortable. He didn't look nervous. He looked prepared. His name was Elijah Carter. And although no one in the room knew it yet, they were about to witness something that would be talked about for years. Elijah made his way toward the defense table, placed a small backpack gently on the floor, and sat down. At the bench, Judge Walter Hargrove adjusted his robe with the subtle disdain of a man who believed respect was earned only through age, title, or reputation, none of which, in his eyes, this boy possessed. Mr. Carter, the judge began, eyebrows raised, where is your legal counsel? Elijah stood calmly and replied, I'm representing myself today, Your Honor. The courtroom reacted. Soft gasps. A few smirks. One person in the gallery actually laughed out loud before catching themselves. The judge tapped his gavel. Once. Just enough to regain silence. Then leaned forward. You understand that this is a formal proceeding? That this is not a classroom or a debate club? Yes, Your Honor, Elijah said, unshaken. And I've reviewed the court's procedural requirements. The judge scoffed and leaned back. We'll see about that. From the prosecution table, Assistant DA Marilyn Kent didn't even look up from her notes. She had handled over 300 juvenile cases in her career and had seen every kind of misguided attempt at self-representation. This one, she thought, would last 5 minutes, 10, at most. But Elijah wasn't here to try. He was here to win. Before we continue, if you've ever been underestimated because of your age, appearance, or background, and proved everyone wrong, this story is for you. Subscribe now, because what happens next isn't fiction, it's a reminder of how brilliance often walks in quietly. The charges? Illegal access to the school's computer system. Tampering with records. Altering grades. A serious case. Enough to risk permanent expulsion. Enough to risk a criminal record. Elijah stood again and requested to make a preliminary statement. The judge waved his hand dismissively. Go ahead. Entertain us. Elijah opened a black folder. His notes were typed, sectioned, and highlighted. But he didn't read from them. He looked up. I'd like to submit a motion to dismiss the charges due to constitutional violations during the investigation process. The judge raised an eyebrow. What violations? For starters, I was interrogated without a guardian or legal representation, in direct violation of my Miranda rights. You were questioned at school, the prosecutor said, now finally lifting her head. On school property, Elijah replied, but by a police officer, not by a teacher or principal. That matters. Legally. He walked toward the bench. I have the transcript from the security footage. The officer never advised me of my rights. Never contacted my parents. He led me to believe I was being asked informal questions, while already having a warrant prepared. He handed the judge a flash drive and a printed document. Judge Hargrove flipped through it. His face didn't change, but his eyes narrowed. I've also included legal precedent, Elijah continued. In the 2009 case of JDB v. North Carolina, the Supreme Court ruled that age must be considered when determining if a suspect is in custody for Miranda purposes. I was 15. And I was alone. A long pause. No one smirked now. The assistant DA shifted slightly in her chair. Elijah stepped back to his table and waited. Still calm. Still steady. Judge Hargrove cleared his throat. Proceed. From there, Elijah dismantled the prosecution's evidence. He pointed out time inconsistencies in the alleged login records. He noted that multiple students had access to the school network password, something conveniently omitted from the report. He cited statements from faculty that contradicted what the officer claimed in his affidavit. He even revealed that the so-called digital fingerprint used to trace the activity had originated from a public IP address logged in a school library, where he hadn't even been that day. Check the attendance, he said. I was marked present in gym class. My PE teacher took roll call personally. Her statement is on page 9. The judge looked at the document. Then at Elijah. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Because now, he wasn't so sure. Now, he wasn't looking at a boy. He was looking at someone who came prepared. Someone who understood the rules better than those paid to enforce them. And the truth? The courtroom had changed. The balance of power had shifted. But still, no one could figure it out. Who taught him all this? How did he learn courtroom structure? Where did he gain the confidence to stand alone? What no one knew, not yet, was that Elijah Carter wasn't just smart. He wasn't just bold. He was connected to something much deeper than anyone expected. And when the truth came out in the next hearing, even Judge Hargrove wouldn't have a word to say. The courtroom reconvened after a short recess. But this time, the energy was different. Elijah Carter stood taller. Not because his height had changed, but because every person in that room now saw him differently. The whispers had stopped. The judgmental glances were gone. What remained was curiosity and caution. Even Judge Hargrove sat with a straighter back. The prosecution, visibly rattled, tried to regain control. They doubled down, questioning Elijah's sources, attempting to dismiss his motions as Google-level law. But each time, Elijah answered with precision. He referenced actual case law. He cited legal procedure. He exposed gaps not only in their case, but in their competence. The courtroom wasn't just watching a defense anymore. They were watching a masterclass. Then, toward the end of the session, the judge asked the question everyone had been thinking. Mr. Carter, where exactly did you learn to argue like this? Elijah paused. Then stepped forward. My mother was an attorney, he said. She practiced federal law for 12 years before she passed away last spring. When she got sick, I started reading her old case files, sitting in on her Zoom depositions, studying her briefs. After she passed, I kept going. I studied every book she left. I read court transcripts for fun. And every time someone told me I was too young to understand, I read more. The courtroom fell completely silent. The judge looked down at the documents in front of him. Slowly, deliberately. Then back up at Elijah. I see, he said softly. But Elijah wasn't done. I didn't come here today to prove anyone wrong, he continued. I came because I refused to be treated like I didn't matter. I knew I hadn't done what they claimed. I knew the law was on my side. But I also knew, nobody would believe me unless I fought for myself. The words landed with weight. Even the gallery, filled with strangers, was moved. One juror wiped a tear discreetly. Another leaned forward, nodding slowly. The judge took a breath. Motion to dismiss is granted, he said. All charges are dropped. And for the record, this court recognizes the extraordinary preparation and legal knowledge demonstrated by Mr. Carter. Elijah exhaled. Not in triumph. In relief. Because the battle wasn't just legal, it was personal. As he gathered his things to leave, the assistant DA approached him. You ever think of going into law? Elijah looked up at her, expression steady. Already started. She smiled. Not in condescension. In respect. And Judge Hargrove? He didn't speak again. He simply nodded, a gesture of humility. Of quiet recognition. Because he hadn't just misjudged a case. He'd misjudged a mind. And in a courtroom built on order and control, a teenager had turned the entire structure on its head. Later, the story spread. A video from a local reporter went viral. Teen defends himself in court, and wins. The comments were full of awe. But the real impact wasn't online. It was in every courtroom, every classroom, and every conversation that followed, where people finally asked. What if the smartest person in the room is the one we don't see coming? If this story inspired you, if you believe brilliance can come from anyone, anywhere, at any age, hit that subscribe button. Speech balloon share in the comments. Have you ever witnessed someone underestimated, and watched them rise above it? And remember, wisdom doesn't wait for permission. And real power never asks to be recognized. It simply shows up, ready.